Hi, my name is Lucas Cheney, and I am a widower who lost my wife in December of 2020. I wanted to make a quick video and just impart some of the things that have been the experiences that I've had with grief. I know not everybody's experience with grief is going to be the exact same. Every widow and widower has their own experiences that they go through, but we pretty much all go through very, very similar things as we go along this path. And grief in year one, it's an absolute shit show. You are just constantly bombarded by what I described as a Category 5 hurricane, and it just takes everything from you, all of your energy, to be able to survive those attacks. And they last a super long time early on in year one. And then as that first year goes along, your hurricane attacks from grief go from a Category 5 down to a 4, then 3, then 2, then 1. Maybe by the end of your first year, you get to be in a tropical storm. Maybe this one only lasts a couple of hours instead of the weeks or days that the previous grief attacks have been. But that time element to the loss does help. I want to put that in quotations because it's all shit. It really is. But time does give you the opportunity to see the shift in the seasons and the change in the winds of what your grief is that you are having to go through and experience. And even though I'm only 2.5 years out in year 3 right now, right? The experiences that I had as I left year 1 and went into the second year is that grief was no longer these massive hurricanes that would come along and just utterly devastation in its path, right? It is now more like a rolling thunderstorm that's just always there. And you pay attention to it when the lightning claps, right? And lets you know, hey, you got to deal with this now. There's a lot of different various faces to grief. There's the one that sucks the absolute most. That is overwhelming sadness. And this version of grief can hit you from out of nowhere. You must be having a good day. And then all of a sudden, you are just, every emotion in your body's sad. And it overrides all logic that you have. You can't reason your way out of this feeling. You don't know how long it's gonna last. Usually it's not a quick one. Several hours, could last up to a couple of days. In time, it gets a little bit easier to be able to deal with that. But it still really fucking sucks because you just feel so sad, and the emotional response inside of your body is so overwhelming and so incredibly draining. You're just exhausted by the end of trying to be able to get back out of that. And that one, it's probably the worst version for me that I've experienced as I've had to go through these grief waves. You know, the other faces of it are just, what is grief if not love persevering? So you have this love that you want to be able to express to your lost spouse, and you can't express it to anybody because they're gone. So that's your grief, trying to be able to say, I still love you. Not being able to get to say that, not be able to get to hear that back. You're going to have a face of grief that's not just grieving the loss of the person, your person, what you had. You're going to have the grief of the loss of the life that y'all should have had together. The rest of growing old, the trips that you were going to go on, the things that you were going to do, just all those experiences of life together. The other faces of grief that a widowed person are probably going to have to go through is just that moving forward and trying to be able to recreate a life out of this absolute crater that has been created by the losing your spouse. Your life is nowhere near what it once was. It's not complete anymore. There is so much in that loss. I am still a very similar type of person that I was before. I still have my enjoyment of all things space and cars and comics and, extremely logical person. So the core identity of me didn't change, but everything about my life changed. How I live it day to day absolutely has changed, and it's never come back yet, 2.5 years out. And that's what happens when you move into year 3. I feel grief through this time period hits less and less. Those waves that were just overwhelming and crashing just back to back to back at the beginning become farther and fewer in between now. That's a good thing. But tightly integrated to a grief wave that has gone towards a back burner is now this new thing that is sitting there and facing you every single day. And that's loneliness. And widowed people try to be able to do things to be able to help them out with that loneliness. We find each other in these groups that we have to be able to reach out and talk to other people who get it. We try to be able to go out there and date again, and you're going to get a lot of different opinions about when that should happen and how that should happen and how to pay tribute to your late spouse and all those things. But in my experiences, the trying to go and date again and do a relationship again was just trying to be able to distract me from the true loss that I had. And I think it's different here in year 3. I think I'm finally ready to actually go and be in a real relationship, because that's what I want to be able to have again, and that's what I'm able to give again. It comes with a lot of complexities. This healing shit is hard. And I've done my best to go and get professional help with mental health and therapy and working through the myriad of issues that have come up from going through this stress index, most stressful life traumatic event. Mine is complicated through dealing with mental health in my marriage and her depression and her suicide that has made my moving forward much more difficult and complicated because of that. But back to this loneliness and how it's tied to grief still. So the grief of missing that person, further and further between, but in those further and further in between being hit through these grief problems is you're now lonely. And you look for companionship anywhere that you can get it. You look for physical touch because the skin hunger gets real. And mostly now, though, you're missing the life that you had. And so that's why I think it's tied to grief. And it's not the same type of grief waves that I was dealing with the first 2 years. But I'm now dealing with this issue of, I just want to be able to have my person again. I just want to be able to have my life back, complete life back, to be able to go to bed next to that person and be able to wake up next to that person and to be able to be in love and be loved again. And the yearning for that is so strong and overwhelming that you could easily fuck up a potential relationship that you're trying to go and get into, because you want to skip the steps. I've been in the steps. I did the steps. I had a really great marriage. I want to be back in that, but I can't force it. I can't skip ahead. This isn't a DVR. You can't fast forward. And there are so much complexities with being a widower that dating is extremely hard as you go through that. And so it's a different version of grief. As you go through your widowed experience, year 1 is very different from year 2, and year 3 appears to be very different from year 2. So I don't know what the next years are going to give me. I just know what the previous ones have delivered. I know that it's not over. I won't ever give up the love that I had for my late spouse, nor should I. So grief is just going to be a companion and a partnership along this journey as I move forward in my life and be able to try to recreate what I want to be able to go and have, which is whatever my next is. And I just think that it's really tough to go through these experiences. I wanted to talk about it a little bit tonight. I don't really know why. I know that I'm rambling at this point, so I'll end it there, and I'll probably make another one of these in a couple of years to describe what the next part of this journey is as I go through this in the middle of my life. I was widowed at 39, I turned 42 this year. So, trying to figure out what my 40s mean. Thanks for listening.